Hey everyone, welcome to Professor Long's Lectures in Anatomy and Physiology. I'm Professor Bob Long. If you're watching these videos, they are intended for use by students who are enrolled in my courses at Del Mar College. So the structures that we go over are unique to our classes and the way that we teach it. If you're enrolled anywhere else or in another instructor's class, please learn all the structures they want you to know. Okay? We're going to be going over the male reproductive system. So I have a series of 3 models that show almost all the same structures but from different views. I'm going to focus initially on this part of the model, and then I'm going to step out of the screen and zoom in on this part so we can see all the anatomy that we need to see. I'm going to start with the spermatozoon. Spermatozoon is the name of the sperm cell. People don't like to say spermatozoon or spermatozoa. O-N, zoon is one, zoa would be plural. So people say sperm. But this is a sperm. It's a sperm cell or spermatozoon. It has several parts to it. One part is called the head. Then there's a neck, which is not on our list. Then there's this long middle piece. And then there's the flagellum or tail. Use the word flagellum. The flagellum whips around and allows them to swim through all the fluids to try to find the egg. Now, if you look at the head itself, there's a little part down here. And then there's this little blue area right here. That little blue part of the head of the spermatozoon is called the acrosomal cap, or some books call it the acrosome. So this is our acrosomal cap. And then there's the rest of the whole thing is the head of the sperm. And then we have the middle piece and the flagellum. We'll talk about the importance of those structures in lecture. Now, in order to see greater detail on this part of the model, I'm going to move my camera and zoom in down here so that hopefully you can see all the little structures that you need to see. Or I should say big structures, I guess. Guys and their egos. But this organ right here is called the penis. This organ is the testes. And there's a lot of internal anatomy here. Now, the testes are where sperm is produced. And it's produced in structures called seminiferous tubules, which we'll see on a slide. And they all come together and form this coiled up tube that comes down here and then folds back up and exits and runs through the body. Now, the coiled up part of the tube where the testes are is called the epididymis. It's the epididymis, or I say epididymis, so I remember how to spell it. It's all I's but one Y. And that's where sperm kind of hang out until they're functionally matured, and then we need to release them or going to release them. And then this tube that the sperm will swim out of, after it flexes over, the rest of the tube is called the ductus deferens up until here, or it's also called the vas deferens, V-A-S, vas deferens. When someone gets a vasectomy, they cut that tube inside the scrotum and tie it off and burn it so that sperm cannot be released. Males will ejaculate fluid from all these other organs. There just won't be any spermatozoa in them so that they can't impregnate a female. So this pouch of flesh that houses the testes is called the scrotum. So we have the penis, the testes, and the scrotum. We have the epididymis and the vas deferens or ductus deferens. Okay. Now, there's also some blood vessels and nerves that go around and encapsulate all of this. And so this part of where the blood vessels and vas deferens and nerves are is a structure called the spermatic cord. It's just this region right here. Now, as the vas deferens runs up, there's one that goes on either side, and then they come together. Oh, they don't come together. They go on either side and into the body. And they pass right over the pubic bone through the abdominal musculature. And the opening here, or the gap that the tube would pass through, if we ask you for the tube, it's vas deferens. If we ask you for the opening or gap, that is called the inguinal canal, and that's where the testes descend. We actually all start off life as females, and when our genetics cause us to kick in the male sex hormones like testosterone, the ovaries morph into testes, the fallopian tubes become the vas deferens, and a bunch of other structures. The clitoris becomes the penis, and the labia become the scrotum. And then the testes will descend from the abdomen through the inguinal canal and fall into the scrotum just around birth time. If they get stuck in the body, then it's called an undescended testicle. So that's the inguinal canal, sort of the passageway here that this tube is passing through. You notice the vas deferens passes over the urinary bladder, and then from the urinary bladder, we have the urethra, this tube that runs through here and exits the penis. I'm going to go over the different regions of the urethra in just a moment. But the vas deferens will come behind the urinary bladder, and it's going to fuse with this little organ right here, or at least with the tube of this organ. That organ is called a seminal gland or seminal vesicle. It's called the seminal gland or seminal vesicle. There's two. If I were staring at the back of the bladder, there would be two seminal vesicles. The tube coming out of the seminal vesicle, where the vas deferens fuses, that's called the ejaculatory duct, because they're going to dump fluids into this that will become part of the ejaculate. Notice the ejaculatory duct here passes through this organ. This little plum-like organ right here that wraps around the urethra is called the prostate or the prostate gland. And the ejaculatory duct runs through the prostate and empties into what we call the prostatic urethra. Okay. Now, just below the prostate is a sling of musculature here. There's several muscles here that make the base of the pelvis. And when those muscles contract, they will contract at ejaculation in a series of tough contractions that will squeeze the ejaculate out in a series of spurts. And it was once thought this was a membrane, but now we know it's muscles. There's another pair of little glands. We only see one here. This one is called the bulbourethral gland, and it will empty into the urethra as well. So this is the bulbourethral gland. That's the seminal vesicle or seminal gland, and that's the prostate or prostate gland. Along with the fluids and the spermatozoa, there's other fluids added by each gland that will pass through the urethra and out the penis. Now, the urethra itself can be divided into three regions. This specific part of the urethra, as it passes through the prostate, is called the prostatic urethra. As it passes through this muscle, it's called the membranous urethra, and as it enters the penis, it's called the penile urethra, or some books use the term spongy urethra, and you'll see why in a second. This is the penile urethra or spongy urethra. Now, if you look at the penis itself, it's made up of three types of erectile tissue. There's two little bodies on top that have these big empty caverns. You see these little blue rectangles? Those are like little caves or caverns. So this erectile tissue here is called the corpus cavernosum. Corpus cavernosum is singular, but there's two of them. There's another one on the other side. They're called the corpora cavernosa in plural. And both of them are on top of this blue structure here that runs all the way through the penis and into the head of the penis. And this blue layer or blue tissue here is called the corpus spongiosum. Notice it's got a lot of little tiny holes like a sponge. Those three tissues, the two corpora cavernosa and the singular corpus spongiosum, when a male becomes aroused, blood flow into the penis will increase, but blood flow out of the penis does not increase. And so more blood flows into the penis than can come out, and all of those areas, the caverns and the spongy tissue, will fill with blood, and the penis becomes erect, causing erection. So those are the erectile tissues, the corpus cavernosum, corpus spongiosum. And the spongy urethra is called the spongy urethra because it passes through the corpus spongiosum. And again, some books call it the penile urethra. The head of the penis itself is called the glans, and it's spelled G-L-A-N-S. There's no D like gland. It's called the glans penis. And you notice there's a thin layer of tissue covering the penis here. That's called the prepuce. Some people call it the foreskin, but it's technically called the prepuce. And when a male becomes erect, the head of the penis will protrude from the prepuce or the foreskin, allowing it to be stimulated. And the skin at the tip of the penis is the most sensitive area for fine touch receptors. We have the highest concentration of fine touch receptors in the male body on the head of the penis. On the females, it would be on the head of the clitoris or clitoris, same difference. So you can see a little bit of the prepuce there. The removal of the prepuce, by the way, is a surgical procedure called a circumcision, which means to cut around, and they cut the prepuce and remove it. For males who are circumcised, the prepuce has been removed. For males who are uncircumcised, the prepuce remains. The prepuce, by the way, has glands in it called preputial glands, and they can lubricate the penis when a male becomes aroused. If a male is not circumcised, by the way, you teach little boys, if you have them, to pull the prepuce back and clean it very well. because bacteria and dirt and debris get in there and it can cause problems. So circumcision avoids that, but then you lose some of the preputial glands which lubricate the penis for intromission or insertion. All right, so that's this model. Quick run through: penis, scrotum, testy, epididymis, vas deferens passing through the inguinal canal here, vas deferens or ductus deferens, seminal gland or seminal vesicle, urinary bladder, ejaculatory duct and the prostate, the prostatic urethra, the membranous urethra, and the penile or spongy urethra. There's the bulbourethral gland. This erectile tissue is called the corpus cavernosum. This erectile tissue is called the corpus spongiosum. The head of the penis is called the glans, and the skin covering the penis is called the prepuce. Okay? Now, I have another model. I'm going to remove this one. And this is another male model. It shows almost the exact same thing, only different. Let me make sure it's within my view of my screen. And then let me zoom in on it. On this model, you can see a lot of the same stuff. Okay? Only we see where it has not been cut completely in half in a mid-sagittal section. The organ here is the penis. We can see the glans penis, and I can see the prepuce. The skin here is the scrotum. This is the testy. There's the epididymis. I don't see the individual vas deferens yet, but what I do see is the spermatic cord. The vas deferens would be buried in the blood vessels and the nerves there. But this is spermatic cord here. As it loops over, I'm going to tilt the model towards you. There's a little passageway here that the vas deferens would come out and the blood vessels would come through, and that is your inguinal canal right here. The vas deferens passes this way, right over one of the ureters, so you can see the vas deferens here and the ureter there. This would be the urinary bladder. This little gland right here is the seminal vesicle. There's the prostate gland. You can see the colon, and as it flexes over here, there would be the sigmoid colon. So the only way for the doctor to really feel or check if the prostate is enlarged is they have to digitize you. They have to stick a finger in the anus and press on it and see if it's hardened and enlarged. And so that's part of a prostate exam. Because of sort of a machismo attitude by a lot of males, they don't want to get tested. And prostate cancer ends up killing more men than breast cancer kills women because men don't get checked late in life. So when you need your prostate exam, get it. Okay. Anyway, if I remove half of the penis here, and I could remove all of this, and then it starts to look just like the other model. You see the bladder with the detrusor muscle and rugae. I can see the seminal gland or seminal vesicle, the ejaculatory duct, and I can see the prostate with the prostatic urethra. This part is not removed, but I can see the corpus cavernosa, the glans penis, and I see a little bit of the corpus spongiosum and the penile urethra. So this model shows us both the 3D and sort of the flat structures. Finally, there's this male model, which is the exact same thing, only different. It's a little bit more 3D, and it shows us a couple of things we can't see on the other models. So I'm going to turn this into different views so that we can see what we need to see. So at this angle, you can see the scrotum. There's a testy here. You can see the penis and the glans. The prepuce has been removed. This would be the spermatic cord over here. Now, there's a bunch of other tissue, but if I flip it around to the back, this would be the urinary bladder, and you can see a ureter here, and someone broke this one off. And if I tilt it this way, you can see the vas deferens running here through the inguinal canal, runs here as the vas deferens, and then meets up with the seminal glands or seminal vesicles. This side's been cut open. And then they will fuse and run through this organ, which is the prostate or the prostate gland. Now, if I flip it back around, on this side, just outside the blood vessels, there's all these red strips here which represent a muscle called the cremaster muscle. The cremaster muscle can contract and pull the testes closer to the body, or relax and let the testes fall farther away from the body. Sperm are produced at a specific temperature that is just below body temperature. Body temperature is 98.6. Sperm are produced around 94 to 96 degrees Fahrenheit. So because we wear clothes, they compress the testes up close to the body and warm them. When it gets really warm and too hot, then the testes can hang further away from the body, allowing more air circulation to keep the temperature just right for maximum sperm production. When it gets too cold, the cremaster muscle tightens up the scrotum and pulls everything up closer to the body. Everything looks smaller when it's cold, and that warms the testes, like, putting your hands under your armpits. It pulls them up closer to the body. So those are the strips of the cremaster muscle. Quick review: penis, glands, spermatic cord. The strips, the red lines, represent the cremaster muscle. You can see the scrotum here. You can see the top edge of the urinary bladder and a ureter, and I can see the vas deferens running through this is the inguinal canal, and there's the vas deferens. If I go around to the back, I can see where the vas deferens comes and joins with the seminal vesicles, and they will enter the prostate. Now, one of the last things I'll show you on this model is we can literally remove it from the stand, although it's a little bit difficult sometimes. And, well, let me just do it this way. We can open it up. That wasn't real smooth, was it? And you can see that this has all the same anatomical features. That would be an absolute nightmare, let me tell you. But you can see all the anatomical features. You can see the corpus cavernosum, the corpus spongiosum. You see the bladder with the cremaster muscle and the rugae. You can see the prostate with just a little tiny piece of the ejaculatory duct there. You can see the penile urethra. So you can see a lot of the same structures that you see on the other two models, but it shows us some more three-dimensional analysis. All right, listen. I hope you had as much fun as I did. I hope you saw all the structures that you needed to see. Now you need to start labeling your pictures. Do it till you can't stand it. Do it till you understand it. And then do it 5 more times until you can make an A on your test. Thanks for watching. See y'all in the next video.